Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. My name is Bernadette Desir, and I'm your host. And joining me today is David. David, how are you?
Bernadette, awesome. I've been looking forward to this, honey. We're going to have some fun today.
Awesome. I'm excited to get to know you more. Before we get started, can you tell us where you're tuning in from?
Yeah, Fort Myers, Florida. But you know what's interesting? I know that you're in frozen Canada, but
Yeah.
we've had the craziest weather, Bernadette. I mean, we had 2.5 months that for us, getting to 50 degrees and 45 degrees is freezing.
Oh,
So it's really bizarre. We finally have a little bit of warmth coming back, so I'm happy. But I know that I know what you're going through because I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and we were always freezing up there. Tons of
yeah.
snow and tons of cold.
Yeah, it's really bad here. Yeah. I'm looking forward to some warm weather eventually. Yeah. So, David, can you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Wow. Bernadette, we're going to need about 24 hours if we get into everything I do. I started out in the world of sports. And so sports psychology was a natural for me to go. I played basketball at Syracuse University for a couple of years. Really, really loved the sport. And so became a sports psychology coach, worked with athletes for years. And then in 1990, I had two very, very life-changing experiences. One would be considered positive and one people might consider to be negative.
Mhm.
The first one was I got an athlete that I started working with, and she didn't need my help in regards to her mindset, motivation, training methods, all that stuff. She had incredible vindictiveness against a former husband who left her for a younger girl. So her intention when she came to me, and this is what got me into relationship work, her intention was to get her body into be such incredible shape. Now, here's a professional athlete. Her body is already in professional or in amazing shape.
Yeah.
And she's going, I want to get back at my ex-husband. I have this vindictiveness and I'm angry. And so I worked with her to get to a level of forgiveness. So this was one of my first major turning points, after 11 years, starting in 1979 in the world of sports psychology, 1990, all of a sudden I get this athlete and we're going to only work on her relationship with herself and letting her husband go, forgiving her. So that started to really change. I started to get more and more people coming in for addiction, for relationships. But then another huge turning point happened then.
Mhm.
I had a failed suicide attempt.
Mm.
And it racked and rocked my world, Bernadette, to a level that I never would have experienced or even thought I could have. And it was, very strange. Here's the counselor, therapist, coach, author, all these beautiful titles behind my name, living on the beach, living the life that everyone wants to live, supposedly.
Mhm.
And I had used two major ingredients to cover up my depression, my anxiety that had ended up bringing me to the point of wanting to leave this world. I used positive thinking.
Mhm.
I used to say affirmations every day. I am sober. I'm a child of God. I'm David Essel. I'm happy. And it was all BS. It was all nonsense. I was
Yeah.
I was drinking every night. But that's the power of positive thinking in what we call toxic positivity.
Mhm.
Where instead of dealing with life, you use those damn phrases as a way to get out of dealing with life. And, it's one of the reasons it's kind of funny, Bernadette, because my first book that became a #1 bestseller was a book that went against the law of attraction and The Secret. I wrote a book that just tore them both apart because they're both nonsensical teaching platforms. And so one of the greatest turnarounds when this happened, when I had this failed suicide attempt, is that I understood that there were two things that I had masked my emotions, Bernadette, and we do this very well. I mean, for 30 years, I was an alcoholic. I started at the age of 12. In my early therapy days, I was still drinking heavily, although the craziest thing in the world is I was getting people sober left and right. I couldn't get myself sober, but I could get everyone in the world sober, so that was really fascinating. And as I continued to do this type of work, I realized that, really where my strength is going to have to be is in the world of mental health and recovery.
Mhm.
And what I say to people all the time is that, I used alcohol, I use positive thinking. Some people use food, some people use sex, some people use money as a way to avoid dealing with the reality. But one of the cool things that happened is that I was born in the 50s, and I can remember in 1959, I was a terrible little child. I was always causing trouble in the household. And back then the doctors, they didn't believe that children could have depression or anxiety or any type of mental health challenge. Of course, ADD and ADHD weren't even talked about in the 50s. So I'd be sitting in a doctor's office and he's smoking cigarettes back in 1959, right? And it's crazy to think about these things. But what they told my parents is that I had allergies.
Mm.
And my allergies were causing my bad attitude, my anger, my pushback. Well, in 1990, after the failed suicide attempt, and I went through all this mental health testing, we came out that and this is going to be pretty obvious after a failed suicide attempt, but, I was dealing with incredibly deep clinical depression, a generalized anxiety disorder that had never been treated, ADD that had never been treated, and ADHD that had never been treated. So, when you look at those things, you go, well, no wonder I became an alcoholic at 12. Like there was
Yeah.
no help from the medical field because they didn't know what the hell to do back then. They didn't think kids got depression or anxiety, and so it was a major turning point. Since that, I mean, and a lot of things, Bernadette, and one of the things I love about your show, the Unleashing Potential, so many of the things that I'm going to be talking about today, all the stuff that I do, pretty much, I have no training for. Think about that. You want to talk about
Me
too many
too.
people. Right? Too many people use that as an excuse. Well, I don't have a degree. I can't do this. I don't have, BS. Your potential is your potential to create in any way that you want. I mean, Toni Morrison won the Nobel Peace Prize for writing at 61 or 62, something like that. I wrote books for 20 years and we never got a #1 bestseller until I wrote a book that some people said was going to kill my career. Positive thinking will never change your life. And that one just goes nuts, so your potential is all about your mindset. When I never thought I could ever write books. But when I was about 28 or 30 years old, I had a personal assistant and she looked at me one day and she said, David, you need to write books. I said, I work with athletes in their mind. I don't write books. And she said, but when you sit down with my 2 little kids and tell them stories, you're an amazing storyteller. Why don't you think about writing? And you know what, Bernadette, it's interesting. So I have no background in literature, no background in broadcast journalism, no background in journalism, right? And we have 15 books out.
Oh, wow.
Five of which have become #1 bestsellers. And this is not a bragging statement. This is a statement that says I have no right to have 20 books out and 5 bestsellers. I just don't believe in mass consciousness. I don't believe that you have to have. Now, if you want to be a brain surgeon, yes, you're going to have to go through school for that. But most things, or you're not going to operate on my butt or my head. I'll tell you that. Most people limit their ability to find joy and service and purpose and happiness in life because they're afraid that they may fail. Well, I don't have a degree in this. I don't have a degree in that. I don't know anyone that could get me started as an entrepreneur. I don't even know. So we have all these self-limiting thoughts, right? These self-sabotaging thoughts. Oh, I wish I could be like David Essel, hosting podcasts and radio shows and television shows. I have no background in television, radio, and podcasting, I just always follow what felt great to do, Bernadette. I've always had that as a mantra, that like, what does it feel good to do right now? Write a book? Good, let's write one. In the last, I think, year and a half, we've written 3 or 4 books. I mean, that's unheard of in the world of being an author. You don't write 3 books in a year and a half, but I don't listen to those statistics. I don't listen to any of that nonsense. I follow my heart. Now, I make mistakes. I remember it was 1974, the last mistake I made. I'm still suffering from. That's just a joke. I make mistakes all the time, and I suffer just like every other human being. I invest in things that completely lose all my money. I'm just a human being, right? That's all I am. I'm no different than anyone else. However, if there is one difference I have, anyone can have this one difference, and that is just keep going after what you desire, as long as it has a positive impact on this world. As long as what you desire has a positive impact, don't wait until the time is right. The time is never going to be right. I swear to God. When people come to me and they say, isn't that true, Bernadette?
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
it's
it's
very true.
100%. People come to me and they say, well, I really should quit drinking, but I don't think I'm ready yet. And I'll go, no one has ever freaking walked into this office and said, I am so excited to get sober. I just can't
Yeah.
wait to be sober.
Yeah.
No one has ever called me on the phone and said, David Essel, thank you so much for doing this work in sobriety. I've been drinking for 25 years. I can't wait to not drink. We never hear those words. We don't hear a food addict say, I can't wait to never eat a donut again. We don't have people who are on heroin saying, I can't wait until I never get high again. So what we say to people is, don't wait until you're ready to write a freaking book.
Mhm.
Take a course, hire someone to help you get started, then write the freaking book. No, the same thing with anything in life.
Mhm.
Now, there are some things that we need to really slow down with that we see that's going on in this world. And
Mhm.
one of them, Bernadette, is that addictions are out of control right now. When we say addictions, procrastination is an addiction.
Mm. Yeah.
So let's think about this. We can become addicted to procrastinating over taking care of our health, our money, our relationship. Procrastination is one of the biggest addictions in the world right now. And it shocks people when they hear me say that, because most people don't talk about procrastination as an addiction,
Yeah.
but it's a serious one. You
Mhm.
know, you put off getting help for your gums or your teeth long enough, procrastination is going to come and just beat you up.
Yeah.
You deny going in for your regular medical checkups, or you deny whatever it might be. And the more you procrastinate, the deeper whatever you're trying to run away from becomes. And then procrastination is a great segue into addiction, because we feel so guilty and so ashamed that we keep procrastinating. We say, I need to find something to cover up this feeling of shame and guilt. And that's where food and pot and nicotine and alcohol and social media and workaholism and all these other beautiful addictions come into play, because there is a benefit to addiction. If there wasn't benefits to addictions, we would never have any. And the greatest benefit to addiction is it momentarily numbs our pain. It
Mm.
momentarily numbs those things we don't want to face. It momentarily gives us liquid courage to walk into a networking event when we're petrified as heck to go in alone, because we don't have that courage.
Mhm.
And so, because we procrastinate on learning how to boost our courage, then we start having a couple drinks to go to the networking event, to have a couple drinks at the networking event. And we can see how this turns into absolute hell in people's life. And we're never going to reach our potential. The crazy thing, Bernadette, and I know I've completely monopolized this show, and now it is David Essel's show, because I'm not even allowing Bernadette to ask a freaking
Oh
question.
no, this is about you. I typically do try to remove myself. I'm there to guide the conversation, but this is people's playground to express, to share. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing. Everything you've just shared literally sums up the definition and meaning of the podcast. Because people ask me, am I in a specific niche? I said, no. Why do I have to fit in a niche? Why can't we talk about mental health, therapy, kids, family, and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I love what you shared about potential. That's exactly what it is. And believe me when I say this, just like you, I have no freaking clue, no experience of what I'm doing. But I'm like, I'm just going to do it. Why not? If someone can do it, why can't I do it? I don't have degrees in communication, nothing. I just have a story and a heart, and I love people. I don't
Yeah.
care who they
Yes.
are. I love people and want to hear from them. So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Your last words just sent these amazing chills up my spine.
Mm-hmm.
Really beautiful, Bernadette, when you said, I love people.
Mm-hmm. I love people who doesn't even love me or who
Yeah.
doesn't look like me. It's not
I,
about that. I see the soul. This is just a vessel.
yeah.
It is. It's like when we order something, whether it's on Amazon, we got to open the package to get what's inside of it. And
Yeah.
that's what I see in people. Most
Yeah.
of us are blinded and we see the cover of the box. And you know
That's
the
right.
saying when people say, don't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So
You
do
know,
you have, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go right ahead, man. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say if you have TV shows or radio shows and podcast.
Oh my gosh, I don't know, I've been doing this work for 45 years now, Bernadette. I can't
Oh
believe it's been
wow.
45 years. It's just like insane. We have a podcast. Yeah, we have a podcast, David Essel Alive. And I just did a bunch well, we do it a little differently. Our podcasts are about 5 to 7 minutes long. They're super
Oh,
short.
okay. Okay.
And I don't have guests. Now in the past, I hosted nationally syndicated radio shows with Sirius
Mm,
XM.
mm.
I hosted shows with Westwood One. I've done TV shows with Fox in New York and Lifetime Television in New York. So I have a lot of experience of being in the spotlight without any experience in order to get me there. Just like you. And
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
funny. I'll tell you a cute story. It was in 1989. I'm
Mhm.
in Los Angeles, California. And of course, I was in the fitness industry, and I was a sports psychology coach and all that stuff. But I was one of the first men to release male aerobic exercise videos. So I was one of the first men
Oh,
in
wow.
in America, Jane Fonda, Kathy Smith, David Essel, and so I started out, doing these videos, and
Mhm.
it was in those videos. I'm in Los Angeles, California, at the largest video convention in the world, and I'm signing these massive posters promoting one of my exercise videos. And there was this guy standing over to the left. I'll never forget this. 1989. He was tall, thin. I think he had glasses on, and he just stared. I was there for 7 hours. We had lines of people,
Yeah.
7 hours signing posters, and this guy was staring at me. And finally, my publicist at the time, her name was Susan Aris. She was just
Mm,
a sweetheart. She
mhm.
said, "David, this guy's been over here for 7 hours. I'm not feeling good. I'm going to go over and figure it out. And if he's some kind of goofball, I want to get him out of here." And or if he's so she goes over and we find out that he's the producer of a massive TV show in New York City,
Oh,
and he's
wow.
been waiting for me to quit signing posters so he can get me booked on the show.
Wow.
And now, again, no experience whatsoever, right? So I go and I'm a guest on the show, and all of a sudden I'm a regular. And for a year, they fly me from Florida to New York City every week to do a segment. Now, this is the interesting thing, and we go back to our potential.
Mhm.
We never will know our potential until we put ourselves in a position to fail.
Ooh, is that a quote?
That's a quote. That's a
I love
quote.
that. Wow.
Until you put yourself in a position to fail, you'll never really understand what your potential is, And I can go back to when I was not drafted. I was not a scholarship kid at Syracuse University. I was what they call a walk-on athlete,
Mm,
which means that the odds of me making the team were incredibly tiny. And they had like 200 guys trying out for the team, and there was only 2 or 3 spots open that weren't for
mhm,
scholarship players. So we're
mhm.
fighting against 300 other people for three slots. But there was never a one time, and my mom and dad were not athletic, so I didn't get any kind of competitive gene from them. They were actually quite the opposite. They were very calm, and I was very crazy. I don't know how I got into that family at all, but it must have been my parents' bad karma from the past to bring me into their life. They had to pay it at some time. But it was putting myself in that position and know the odds were 1,000,000 to 1 that I was going to make the team.
Mhm,
I knew the odds were incredibly tiny, but I did not let that affect my attitude. As a matter of fact, I used it as motivation. I worked so hard during those tryouts, because I knew I was under talented. I knew I couldn't match some of these kids from New York City, that were just freaking unbelievable players. But the coaches came up to me afterwards and pulled me aside and said, "Hey, we're bringing you on the team, and we're going to tell you why. You're
mhm.
not as gifted as most of the guys that are on this team, but you're ferocious. You're a leader. You never back down. There's one thing that when I screamed at you during the tryouts, you said, 'Yes, sir.' And you did
Mhm.
exactly what I asked you to do. You are an amazing teammate. You're an amazing leader. You're going to be something great in the future. It will not be the NBA, David." Let me tell you right away. You're on this team, but you ain't going to the NBA, okay? And we were laughing so hard, but it was like that opened up the doors, right? When I said, "Holy crap." Now, what would have happened, Bernadette, if I wouldn't have made the team? I
Mm,
would have been disappointed for 24, 48, 72 hours. And then I would have said, "Well, you know what? I did my best. I
yeah.
kicked butt. I just didn't have it to make the team."
Mhm,
I don't know where that came from, like where did that attitude come from? It could have been maybe handed down from my parents. Maybe they gave me that. I'm not quite sure.
mhm,
But then another interesting point came on my junior year in college when the coach called me into the office, and I was a walk-on for the first 2 years, which means I did not have a scholarship. And my
mhm.
junior year, his name was Roy Danforth, and he calls me into the office and he says, "Essel, sit down." He said, "Your dream has been to be right where you are as a Syracuse University basketball player your whole life, right? And I said, yes. Now he was a great motivator, so he knew he knew what he was doing. He kept pumping me, Bernadette. And then he said this, I'm going to offer you something that is mind-blowing.
Mm.
I'm going to offer you a scholarship for your final 2 years at Syracuse University to be a member of the varsity basketball team.
Oh,
And I
wow.
went nuts, Bernadette. I flipped out. I go, oh my God, coach, this is everything I've always dreamed of. And he let me go on and on. And he goes, okay, there's only one thing you have to understand.
Mm.
You'll probably never get in a game.
Wow.
He said, we've got these freshmen coming up from New York City that are mind-blowingly talented. I need you in practice being that defensive animal. I want you ripping them apart. I want you pushing them harder than any team will ever push them. You will be one of the most important assets of this team, Essel. Are you with me? And I looked at him and I said, Coach, this is a very difficult decision. I said, I struggle in school, and I really do. I have to work really hard with my studies. And I said, and between basketball full time and school full time, I
Mhm.
said, I have to think about this. I'm not quite sure. And he said, okay, you have 24 hours, come back. And this next decision I made, Bernadette, you could say was a correct one or an incorrect one. And in the world of that we live in, there's a lot of situations that are like this,
Mhm.
that you could make a decision and it not work out, and it might be the right decision for reasons we'll never know. Or you could make the decision and it works out and you say, okay, it was meant to be. It was destiny. If you believe in destiny or fate, I'm not quite sure that I do, but anyway, and so, I went home that night with my roommate, Jake, and we talked for 6, 7 hours. And it was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. I didn't sleep all night, and I went in at 2:30, and Roy Danforth looks at me and he goes, you made your decision, didn't you?
Mhm.
And I said, Coach, I said, I just don't think I can pass and graduate and be a member of the team and not play. I said those three things together, for me to work 7 days a week and to be on the team and never to get in. I said, I know there's two guys on the team right now that have been doing that for the last 2 years. I said,
Mhm.
I don't know how they do it, but I think I'm going to have to pass. And he just said, okay, you may leave the office. Now, we look at that and we say, was that the right decision? And there are times I say, absolutely. Like I used those next 2 years to really get on top of my grades, and, took a year off from college after that. Actually, it was, that kind of a trauma decision I had to make. It really sort of
Yeah.
rattled me deeply to the core. But
Mhm.
then when I came back, Bernadette, I was so focused. I came back. I never made A's in college, for God's sake. My Lord, all I had was A's. I
Mhm.
went to grad school and I graduated with, a 4.0 average. So it's kind of interesting how there's a part of me that wishes I would have gone on and been a player for 2 more years, because of the alumni I could have met, because of who knows what would have opened up. Maybe a coaching position on the team would have opened up. There could have been all kinds of opportunities, but I chose not to. And in the end, I have to be comfortable with all my decisions in life, even those ones that maybe I could have made a different one. And that is the definition of self-confidence,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And when you have high self-confidence, I could say right now, I might have made a mistake, Bernadette, and that's my confidence that I could have. I'm not going to shy away from it and pretend that I don't make mistakes. I may have made a mistake there. Now, the life that I'm living right now, am I happy? I'm extremely happy. So, I think that was a good move then. Um, I don't know what might have happened if I would have taken that move. It's like, if you're dating two people and, you decide to go with one and then you're wondering, I wonder if the other one, would have been a better choice, right?
Yeah.
But you made the decision. And so you go with that decision and you go with it until it doesn't work. And
Mhm.
when it doesn't work, now let's slow down, guys, because this is going to be something really important to listen to.
Mhm.
When you're going after a major goal, a relationship, a health goal, a business goal, a financial goal, and it doesn't work, that's the time to immediately ask for help. Don't give up on a major goal just because it doesn't come to you at the time you expected it to or at the way that it expected. If it's
Mhm.
something that touches your heart and soul, if that relationship could be
Mhm.
great, but you both have brought some crap from the past you got to clear up, which is usually why relationships struggle, because we haven't cleared up our own crap from the past, and we meet someone
Mhm.
new who hasn't cleaned up their crap from the past, and now what you have, it's called a trauma bond relationship. and that's where most people begin, so
Mhm.
but I want, individuals to walk away today with this thought process that, I have so much more to accomplish than I ever thought I could. I mean, if Bernadette
Yeah.
and David Essel are on air agreeing with each other that they don't know how the hell they got here, they don't have the training. They don't have the degrees.
Yeah.
They don't, maybe it's okay for me to feel the same way. Maybe
Mhm.
it's okay for me to sit and look at these two people who, have positions of authority or a platform, and at least we'll call it that, to get
Mhm.
messages out. Well, if they can do it with no experience, well, what the heck am I waiting for?
Yeah.
And I look, Bernadette, at like people that find in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that they've always had great art skills, painting skills, but they never bothered to try it. Or, how many are great photographers, that later on in life find out that, oh my God, taking pictures is so amazing, or
Yeah.
something else. I look at people in retirement, and I always feel bad when people retire,
You do? Why?
because most people that retire are not happy.
That's
Most
true.
most people who retire start to become food addicts or alcoholics or television addicts or political addicts or something, because they don't have anything purpose. They don't have a purpose for being,
Mhm.
and so I bring this up. There's an organization in America, AARP, American Association for Retired Persons. It's huge, it's massive, and
Mhm.
we're going after them, right? We're going after two huge organizations in the US right now to try to help.
Mm.
One is the retirees, because there's so much addiction, there's so much dysfunction. When you don't have a purpose, you're walking around in your house wondering, what the hell am I doing? Easy
Mhm.
to get into arguments if you're still married, easy to just not be happy in life. So we
Mhm.
really want to take a look at these things, Bernadette, and say, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. And then the other massive organization that we're going to try to help to our best of our abilities is the National Teachers Association in the USA.
Mhm.
Time magazine had a picture of a teacher on the cover, and it's just so true, and it's so frustratingly, it makes me so mad.
Mm.
She has a master's degree. She has 16 years experience as a teacher. She has two part-time jobs, and she donates plasma in order to get by in life.
Wow.
That's a
Wow.
teacher. Master's degree, 16 years as a teacher. She still has to work two part-time jobs and donate blood to have enough money to survive with her and her kids. And so, I look at this, I look at both of these as great opportunities. Like, I look at helping the retirees get out of the world of addiction and boredom and all that crap. And I really want to have a huge impact on unleashing the power and the potential of our teachers to be happy, to be paid a decent
Mm.
wage so they don't have to be working part-time jobs.
Mhm.
And I want to make one other thing, talking about a book judging its cover. I love what you just said.
Mhm.
I have this incredible love of the homeless.
Mm.
I
Me
have
too.
this endless love, Bernadette, of the homeless.
Mhm.
You know, I ask and I post on social media all the time, please look into the eyes of the homeless. Please
Mm.
say hi to them.
Yeah.
Make them feel human.
Mhm.
They feel subhuman because we treat them that way. When you shy away from looking into the eyes, and now I'm not talking about midnight walking down a dark alley type of bullshit. I'm
Yeah.
talking about, near your grocery store or near
Mhm.
your, convenience store or whatever it might be. Well, like in Florida and other cities, it's very common at red lights to have the homeless on the corners panhandling right
Mhm.
next to the cars, right? And so I
Yeah.
roll down the window. I've got a couple dollars. I hand it to them. I bless them. I ask them their first name. I ask them how their day is going. Bernadette, you would not freaking believe how would they go, oh my God,
Yeah.
someone's asking
Yeah.
my first name, and they'll go, Kevin. And I'll go, are you sure it's Kevin? And they'll go, yeah, I'm sure it's Kevin. I go, Kevin, awesome to meet you. Can I shake your hand? Like,
Mhm.
I want them to feel a part of society, not shoved to the side like so many of them are. And we can talk about a lot of different populations like this, Bernadette, but I say this because we have a platform, you and I right now, and
Mhm.
we've got to use this platform for our highest good and for the highest good of this freaking world. And it doesn't happen by thinking or by talking. It happens by doing. So I'm thinking and I'm talking right now, but I'm also asking our audience to do this for us, to do this for you. Your confidence, your self-esteem will go through the roof. Will you be nervous at first? Yes, it's okay. Will you be
Yeah.
anxious first? Yes, it's okay. Will they smell? I want to be honest with you. In the thousands of homeless men and women over the last 25 years that I have stood next to, I rarely have smelled anything other than maybe alcohol.
Mm.
And I don't know why.
Mhm.
Maybe my nose is completely blocked and I don't know. But I will tell you that some of the things we're fearful of, like I walked into the grocery store last night and there was this homeless guy and a cop was doing whatever he was doing. And I'm not going to say he was right or wrong. He was not abusing him physically. I
Mhm.
can tell you that.
Yeah.
Some of the things he was saying, I was very uncomfortable with. But I
Mm.
stood there praying for that man, that homeless man. I wanted
Mm.
him to, and I know he felt the energy. You can't stop the energy of prayer. And so if that's what you do, if you see a homeless person on the street and you just look at them from your car window and send them prayer, send them love, do that,
Mhm.
because now you're part of the solution. And we need to come together as a world. We've never been more freaking divided as a world than we are right now. And Bernadette, because of shows like yours, we can start to turn this damn thing around and become
Mm.
human beings who love each other again, instead of human beings who are looking at why we're so divisive and why that other
Mm.
person isn't like me and why I don't need to care about them or love them. We can turn it around.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I used to work in two major homeless shelter where I am in Canada, and I did it while I was going to school and a teen mom and all of it. And that's why I have a heart, a humble heart for people that society outcast, because not only am I from a poor third world country, had to survive, and I've seen more than someone my age should have. But you're right. I have sat down and made friends with the homeless, the
Yeah.
outcast,
Yeah.
and they somehow always make me feel home
Yeah.
because their walls are down and they are so authentic to who they are versus someone who has it all together and pretending to be what they're not.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Mhm,
Two homeless men that radically touched me deeply. One, his name was Mark, and
mm.
he gave me a story. I turned it into a book, Bernadette,
Oh,
and it's
wow.
called Rock Star: Finding God's Purpose for Your Life.
Mhm,
And this guy, Mark, I was living in Sarasota, Florida. And this guy, Mark, whenever I ran every day, he would come out of the bushes and panhandle, right?
mm.
And I, of course, I'm running. I don't have any money with me. And I'd see him every day and I go, Mark, what are you doing? And he'd go, how do you know my name? Like he was that far off, right? He was
Yeah.
that addicted. And I would say he was probably in his mid 30s, but he had no teeth and I'm just really an absolute mess. And one day he stopped me and I go, Mark, I don't have any money. And I reach in my pocket and I go, oh my God, I have a dollar bill in there for some reason. And I
Mhm.
took it out and I went to hand it to him and it was a five. Now, Bernadette, this is really funny. Like, I don't have a problem with $3 bills versus when I'm handing a five, I'm going, well, David, that's a freaking five, like it matters. But for some reason, I started to hesitate and I go, oh, he already saw it. I handed it to him, right? So he
Mhm.
goes, oh, thank you very much. And he thought it was a one, and I thought it was a one. And I turned around and walked away. And all of a sudden he goes, sir, sir, sir. And I turn around and go, what? He goes, this is a $5 bill. I go, Mark, I know. I thought it was a one, brother. I swear to God.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I said, but listen, I don't want change. Okay, so just keep it. He goes, I got to give you something in return. I said, Mark, I'm fine. I have
Mhm.
everything I need. I don't need. He goes, no, 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 no. He said, it's a written rule. You cannot accept a $5 bill without giving that person something in return.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
going, my God, and he's going through his knapsack. I go, stop, stop, whatever's in there. You needed a lot more than
Yeah.
me. And then Bernadette, he said this. He said, sir, if you won't accept a gift from me, will you accept a story? And I
Mm.
said, what do you mean, Mark? He said, I tell great stories. I said, you tell great stories. He said, yes, I do.
Yeah.
I said, all right, Mark, how long is the story going to take? He said, 5 minutes. I said, all right, go ahead. He told me the most adorable little story of the life of a rock.
Mm. Oh, wow.
It is fascinating. And I took it home And I'll tell you, it was 2000, the year was 2000.
Mhm.
I took it home and I wrote it all down to my best of my abilities.
Mhm.
And I let it sit for over 10 years. Never pulled it out,
Mm.
just let it
Mm.
sit. And then about 5 years ago, I think it was, I pulled it out. I looked at it and I said, oh my God, this is a gift from the heavens. And
Mm.
all I had was a bunch of bullet points, Bernadette. It wasn't like a whole story, but I filled in as an author. I love to tell stories, just like my assistant told me.
Mhm.
And I took his bullet points and I made it into this complete story. And if
Mm.
anyone's interested, of course, everything is available at Amazon. It's called Rockstar: Finding God's Purpose for Your Life. It's a tiny little book. I think it's $6 or $7. It's really tiny.
Mhm.
And it will take you through this
Mhm.
incredible life of a rock that was here
Mm.
for one of the biggest purposes life had ever experienced.
Mhm.
And I'll
Mm.
leave it at that. Now, now let's go back to you and I, Bernadette, and to our audience.
Mhm. Mhm.
As Bernadette said, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have training to do this stuff. We have a
Mhm.
desire to maximize our potential. We have a
Mhm.
desire to unleash our potential, as the name of the show says.
Mhm.
And with that desire, we need to be willing to fail. And in our
Mhm.
willingness to risk, to go after those desires, we may fail. And in the
Mhm.
failing, we will learn. And
Mhm.
we get back up again. And as the Buddha say, fall down 7, stand up 8. We keep
Yeah.
moving forward, one
Mm.
step at a time. And
Mhm.
if writing the book doesn't work for you, then we go to something else. And if that
Mm.
doesn't work for you, we go to something else. But you will find in your search the greatest reason of why you're here, if you don't know already. But it will
Mm.
only come by putting more energy and effort into asking the question, what more could I do to make this world a better place?
Mm, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, something came to mind. I paint and do other stuff. And I've been teaching a friend to paint, and she's very scared of even putting paint on the canvas. And I'm a self-taught artist, and I said sink or swim. That's what I always remind her, right? Sink
Yeah,
or swim. Sink by getting into your head, allowing those negative thoughts and ideas of not being good enough or comparing the artwork, or you can swim by continue to do what you can do, how you know how to do it.
that's right.
And
That's
yeah,
right.
I do lots of stuff. I sing, I dance, I don't know. If there's anything that exists, I'm doing it if I
Yep.
want to do it, not
Yeah.
because other people are telling me to do it to not do it. And I think the we have a disease of dreaming. I don't think we dream big enough. We dream too small when we can dream big. Would you agree?
Oh, 1,000%, and that's one of the
Mhm.
reasons that we do what we do, because we've
Yeah.
we've believed, in ourselves, right,
Mhm.
Bernadette? You
Mhm.
believed in yourself in order to get yourself into the bigger dream than sitting back. You had to have a dream of doing a podcast. Then what we do is we take this podcast dream and we just blow it up. Um,
Mhm.
we accept too little.
Yeah.
We don't accept the full serving that we're deserved in this life. We will
Mhm.
take a little bit and we'll take a little bit, but we don't take the full serving. Now, the
Mhm.
full serving doesn't always mean that you're going to get everything you want on the time you want it. You just have
Yeah.
to remember that, right?
Mhm.
And if we can get out of this whole instant gratification stuff,
Mhm.
people are expecting it all the time, whether we're talking about well, I took an ad on Facebook for 2 weeks and I didn't get any clients or something like that. It's
Mhm.
it's going to be taking a lot more persistence than that. And
Mhm.
one of the other things I think is important to realize is asking ourselves the question, why aren't I at a higher level?
Mm.
Why aren't I making more money? Why
Mhm.
aren't I losing more weight?
Mhm.
Why aren't I forgiving my parents because what they did was 45 years ago and I'm an adult now? Why am I carrying
Mm.
this victimhood forward?
Yeah.
Why don't I forgive myself and
Mhm.
let myself off the hook for what I've done incorrectly in the past? There are a lot of these why questions, like, why am I self-sabotaging? Why am I procrastinating? And, listen, why am I so freaking lazy?
Mm.
That might be a great question, to ask ourselves, why
Yeah.
am I so lazy? Why, why is it that other people can go after their dreams, but I can't, and I
Mhm.
think of, people that have gone after their dreams. The other thing that came to mind as we're talking about, individuals on the fringe of society is the Paralympics.
Mm.
one of the most fascinating Olympic events you'll ever see are these people that are blind, that are swimming, that have no legs, that are racing in wheelchair races, playing
Mhm.
basketball, playing tennis. You know, I mean, like they're maximizing their freaking potential. And are we, you know, if we have vision and arms and legs and they don't, and they're all on the scene. When I say on the scene, meaning that they're doing what they love and they're meeting people and they're making a difference and they're inspiring those individuals older than them and younger than them that don't have an arm or don't have a leg or can't speak or can't see or whatever. You know, they're actually out there doing it, and oh my God, it excites me to see that. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
oh, it's just so.
yes.
And then we have to ask ourselves, why aren't I like them? If they can do it without legs, what the hell am I sitting here for? Watching TV, for gosh darn sake. Why
Mhm.
aren't I out there doing something, making a difference in the community? You know, Bernadette, we could go on for 17 straight days. And I have actually, I looked at my calendar and I do have the next 17 days free. So we'll just keep going.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, I love everything you shared. Um, I love something that you shared earlier about toxic positivity. That one hit home for me because I think at some point all of us have done that,
Yeah.
right? We seek to be seen in the light. But who are we when we're not in the light? Who are we when we're in the darkness, when we're in pain, when there's no one around? That's who I strive to see in people, is the very thing they hide. That's their wings, that's their power they hide, and they're forced to hide it by trauma, by culture, by society, by the world. And I always tell people that I care and I don't care in a good
Mhm.
way. People don't get
Yes.
my analogies when I put them together. I care enough to care, and I don't care enough to be able to seek for validations or please people. And I think
Right.
people crave for authenticity. When we put a mask on, people can see that, yet
Yeah.
some accept it, some don't. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's mind blowing, with a podcast, because first time it came to my heart to share, I'm like, no, God, you got to choose someone else. Even, and I wrestled with it, right?
Yeah.
And even in school, I would sit at the very back, like I would shadow and blend myself. And if the teacher finds me next day, I sit somewhere else, right?
Wow.
So
Right.
I'm like the back row, and now I'm
Yes.
forced to be like here.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
just to let it be, to surrender to every moment, to not try to make it perfect.
That's right. And you know, Bernadette, there's 10 million personal growth authors.
Mm,
And the reason there's 10 million is that everyone's voice doesn't resonate with everyone else's voice, right? It's like the way I write, someone may go, well, as a matter of fact, I'm what's called a conversational writer. I'm not a technical writer at all. I write as I speak. And as a matter of fact, I don't even write books. I speak books. I speak into my phone. I don't ever type a darn thing. Everything is done in my iPhone with my
yeah.
voice, right?
Mhm.
But you know, conversational writers are writers that individuals might say, oh, there's a typo on page 78. They'll be looking, like people who are technical readers will be looking for typos. People who are conversational readers
Yeah.
will be looking for the message. So there are some people that love my writing style because it's very free flowing. It's very comfortable. It's, you know, I'm not hung up on the complete perfect grammar or anything like that. Of course, we have editors that go through it and clean up all of my really bad stuff that I do, but you know, it's not a concern of mine now because there's so many different voices. Someone with us right now may be in a perfect place to write their first book. And let's say that they touch two people. Well, let's say that those two people tried to find the message that one of your listeners put in a book and they read 10 other books on the same message, but they never connected. And then all of a sudden, because one of your listeners, one of your individuals decided, maybe after this interview or another guest that you have, they say, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to, and they do it, right? They just go and do it. They don't hesitate. They don't wait. And if it's super successful, awesome. And if it isn't, awesome. And I want to repeat this again, ladies and gentlemen, this is so important. I wrote books for 20 years and never got any recognition freaking at all. We hardly sold any books whatsoever. It never once dampened my desire to write books. It never had any impact on it. I had so much fun writing books that if
Yeah.
I was the only one that read it, and when my mom and dad were alive, we had 3 people that read my books for sure. But like I didn't worry. I didn't judge. I didn't say, oh my God, I'm a crappy writer because I've written 8 books now and not one of them have sold.
Mhm,
I just kept writing. And I know this is true. If we never, ever would have gotten a number one bestseller, I still would have written 15 books today.
mm,
And I'm going to probably write a lot more. In 1987, I had a 6-hour interview, I guess you could say, with a Vedic astrologer from India
mm,
who could not speak English. And so he traveled the US with an interpreter. And he was introduced to me by one of my greatest mentors of all time, who passed away a couple years ago,
mhm,
Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is the founder of Transcendental Meditation, one of the most, if not the most powerful form of meditation in the world. It's unbelievable. The Beatles are what took it all over the world and made him super famous in 1960.
mhm,
And I had a chance to interview with Maharishi, and he literally blew my mind. And he was one of those people that said to me, those positive thoughts, those affirmations,
mhm,
are they all true? And I
mm.
lied. I
Yeah,
said, yeah. I said,
yeah,
everything I say in my affirmation. He goes, good. He goes, keep doing it. He said, but if they're not true, he said, you're out of integrity.
mm,
Think about that. When you say I earn $1 million a year
mhm,
and you don't, what
yeah,
are we doing to the brain?
mm,
We're
yeah,
telling ourselves a lie.
mhm.
Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting. I have a feeling I've heard of his name before because I meditate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of his name from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, he is. I mean,
Yeah.
if you Google, it's a tough name to remember, but if you just Google transcendental meditation, you will
Mhm,
find, or if you Google the founder of transcendental meditation, that'd even be easier. You'll find his story. He is unbelievable. I
mhm,
mean, the lives that he's changed, the people he's turned around. And it took me a year, Bernadette, of learning how to meditate with a guided visual meditation. It
mhm,
was an audio. In 1986, I started following this audio. I wanted to meditate, but with all these different ADD and all this crap going on, I couldn't focus. So I needed to have a guided meditation. I did that for a year, and then I went through Transcendental Meditation certification program, and oh my Lord. As a matter of fact, one quick story from the world of TM, Transcendental Meditation.
mhm,
After being certified and practicing it religiously every day for a number of years, I decided when I was about 30 to get braces. And I go into the orthopedist office, and he says, okay, he goes, listen, Mr. Essel, this is going to be a real pain. We've gotten, now remember, this is almost 40 years ago when I was 30. So thank God they've advanced in their techniques. But he said, we have this massive mold that we're going to have to jam into your mouth. And it's going to go
mm,
back and it's going to tickle your epiglottis, which is going to make you want to gag. Okay. But you've
mm,
got to hold it for 7 minutes. Listen, a lot of times people are here for an hour and a half, 2 hours because they can't get it. And so really be patient. And I said, okay, okay. As he was putting it in, I was already in my meditative state.
mm,
I was already there.
mhm.
4 minutes go by. Now he has to tell me this because now I'm on Pluto, right? I'm so high in my meditation.
Yeah.
He kept walking around the chair, wondering, have I passed out? Did I fall asleep? My mouth is in perfect position. I'm not gagging. 5 minutes go by, 6 minutes go by. Finally, the seventh minute, he pulls in all the nurses and says, we've never seen this before. Here's a guy for 7 minutes. And
Yeah.
he finally tapped me, and I opened my eyes. He said, are you with us? I said, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And he pulled everything out. He goes, did you just go somewhere? I said, Doc, I was in this most amazing, blissful experience. And he was laughing. He goes, were you meditating? I said, absolutely.
Mm,
And he said, we have never, ever seen this. But let me mention something, Bernadette, again, to go. Everyone has the same ability to unleash your power to meditate that I have. And if I can do it with ADD and ADHD, you can do it as well. Okay. So,
yeah.
and when people say, well, meditation isn't for me. And I'll say, how long have you tried it for?
Mm, 2 minutes.
Yeah. And so we always say
Yeah.
before you give up on a tool, do it for 30 days, 7 days a week.
Mhm.
Whatever, if it's a new exercise program, if it's a new meditation program, do it 7 days a week for 30 straight days before you say it's not going to work.
Mhm.
Because then you've actually given it a fair trial. Whatever we're talking about, I think we need to do that. And remember that willingness to fail, the
Mm.
willingness to fail,
Mhm.
the desire to succeed, but the willing, if I fail, it's okay. When you come with that attitude, I'm going to bust my butt. I'm going to do everything I can to make this business, this relationship, this weight loss program with what's
Mhm.
successful. But
Yeah.
if it doesn't, I'm going to be okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not going to let this rip me apart. Maybe I'll try it again. Maybe I'll go from a different
Yeah.
angle, but I know I'm going to be okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I do know this. If I
Mhm.
don't give it a shot, I'll never know.
Mm.
And will I be missing out on an amazing thing in life, an opportunity, a person? So
Mhm.
let's just really go out there and do what Bernadette is saying. Let's unleash our power.
Yeah.
Unleash your power by taking risks. Putting yourself in a position that might make you feel uncomfortable is not a bad thing.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah. There's a quote that says, "If your dreams don't scare you, they're too small." I don't
Yeah.
remember who wrote it, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If
Very, very
yeah,
true.
yeah. If obviously don't go and have heart attacks, but if you're doing something and it's not triggering any emotions or desire or passion in you, then it's dead work. That's what I call
Right
it,
on.
dead dreams, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. No, that word you just said is very interesting, a passion.
Mhm.
Bernadette, a lot of times when I work with clients and I ask them what their passion is, they don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because they have, maybe since childhood, they've never had a passion. They've never, they've just, gotten a job, go to work, come home, have a family, go to work, come home, whatever the routine is, whatever the rat on the wheel is, right?
Mhm.
And they haven't even taken that time to see, is it possible to have an exciting life while I have the responsibility of a family, while I have the responsibility of a job? There's a lot of great things that you can do, and not be a millionaire and have 24 hours a day to do it as whatever you want. There's lots of things you can do part-time. We mentioned earlier, from photography. My dad, oh my God, I wish he passed away 2 years ago. I don't know if I have
Mhm.
any of his art, but he used to be a woodworker,
Mm.
and he would make these incredible pieces of art. And there's one of the things he made was this incredible clock, very ornate. It took him
Oh, wow.
200 or more hours,
Mhm.
200 hours to use these lathes and these saws and this intricate stuff, right?
Mhm.
And when he retired, and this is another reason why I'm all against people retiring, the
Mhm.
first couple years were not good for my dad. Him and my mom were not used to being in the house together 24/7. There was some challenges going on, and he had nothing to freaking do. And then he picked up woodworking. Oh my God. Do you know at his funeral 2 years ago, he died at 94. There was none of his friends were alive. All of his
Oh,
friends and
wow.
everyone in the military was dead. He
Yeah.
was in World War II. And so everyone was dead. There was no one there. All of a sudden, 30 woodworkers come walking into the funeral from his woodworking club. And now these were all
Wow.
like, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, much younger than my dad. And they all came to bear respect. And I just thought that was such a beautiful thing that came out of a hobby of his. So your passion can be a hobby that can introduce you to groups of people you never would have met in your life. Think about
Mhm.
this.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Turning your purpose into passion.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
that's
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, David, what would you like my listeners to get out of this episode?
I think the most important thing is to look for what it is that you've always wanted to do that you're not doing and ask yourself why. I want you to start right there. There's something that we've always wanted to do, right? Whether it's to, listen, there was a buddy of mine who at 63 entered a bodybuilding competition for his first time in his life, okay?
Oh,
And
wow.
he had to train for 2 years because he wasn't a type of person that was always in the gym, right? But
Mhm.
I mean, and he didn't win. I don't even think he placed. He had so much fun. He learned so much. So let's really search for those things that we've wanted to do that we've never tried. Let's take those risks. Like,
Mhm.
let's start surrounding ourselves with people that feel the same way. And the last thing I'm going to say, Bernadette, is when we look at what makes up our lives in general, what makes up our lives are what we watch,
Mhm.
what we listen to,
Mhm.
what we read, and who we hang out with.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
could be the formula for a great, exciting life or a boring as hell life. It can be the life of a brand new entrepreneur, or it could be the life of a victim that's blaming everyone in the world for their issues. What we watch, what we listen to, what we read, who we hang out with, do an evaluation, because you
Mhm.
may want to stop watching what you're watching, stop reading what you're reading, stop listening to it, and stop hanging who you're hanging with if it's not
Mhm.
fulfilling you at a deep level of passion, you know?
Mhm.
So take that as a final thought and utilize it. Really sit down, maybe with a piece of paper and a pen, and write it out. What am I getting from watching all these shows? What am I getting from watching the news? What am I getting from the conspiracy theory videos on YouTube? And when I say what am I getting, not that I'm right. What am I getting positive out of? What message am I getting from these news shows that's positive? And I'll tell you, 99% of the time, the answer is going to be nothing at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, 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 I
So let's
agree.
evaluate.
Yeah, there's a Bible verse that says to be in the world, not of the world.
Right on.
That's me. I
100%.
I can be quiet, outspoken. I'm just observing what people are doing. Do I
Yeah.
agree with them? No. Do I act or react? Not necessarily, because
Mhm.
I think that's why I always ask people about their childhood, because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
That's where it all begins, right?
Yeah.
We can be in the world, not of the world.
That's right.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, when I listened to one of my favorite mentors was Thich Nhat Hanh, a very famous Vietnamese Zen Buddhist master. And I
Mhm,
work now with someone that was trained directly underneath him, and it's just
mhm,
incredible. But Thich Nhat Hanh was raised in Vietnam. And it was during the Vietnam War, and he was young, and there were bombs falling all over the place. And as a
mhm,
very young child, he was saying, I know this isn't fair. How do I bring peace? As a very young child, he was
wow.
wondering, how does he bring peace to a war? You
Mhm,
know, and he started a foundation and a Buddhist foundation in Vietnam, but then he was kicked out of his own country, just like the Dalai Lama was kicked out of Tibet. And Thich
mhm,
Nhat Hanh could never return to Vietnam. And that there's a sad part of that story, right? But the really powerful part of the story is that he was not attached to being kicked out of his own country. He wasn't a victim. He went
mhm,
to another country and did there what he wanted to do in his home country.
mhm,
So this is a person, you know, that was disenfranchised at one of the highest levels possible. When you're a peacemaker trying to create foundations in countries filled with war and you're exiled from your own country, for God's sake, many people would take that as being the victim, and they would go spiral downhill. And then we look at Thich Nhat Hanh and the Dalai Lama that took both of these quote unquote failures, being kicked out of exile from their own countries, and they've turned it into something magnificent. You
mhm.
and I can do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, Bernadette, you made the mistake of asking me, do I have a final thought? God, I'll have final thoughts until December, Bernadette.
That's awesome. I have two questions for you as we wrap up. The first one is, what is the meaning of life for you?
Finding my purpose and making sure that I'm using it to do the best work in this world possible.
I love that. Last question. Where can my listeners find you, support your work, and buy your books?
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Bernadette. The easiest website you'll ever have to remember is talkdavid.com, because this is all I do. So the website is just my definition of David Essel. So just go to talkdavid.com. You can get 5 books for free. We have 5 of our books up there. You can get absolutely for free. 2 or 3 of them are audibles, and the other 2 are you can download. But you can get those books for free. We also have over 300 blogs on the website for free. There's a link to my YouTube channel that has 2,600 free videos on personal growth. And then you can work with me one-on-one from anywhere in the world, whether it's about grief recovery, addiction recovery, finding your purpose, unleashing your potential. As Bernadette says here on this show, you know, we've been doing it all for 45 years. So visit talkdavid.com. Take advantage of all the free stuff. And when you're ready, I'll be ready to work with you.
I love that. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all you do, and continue doing the amazing work that you're doing.
Oh, Bernadette, I will. You as well. We need uplifting people, and you're one of them. If I
Thank you.
can
Thank
ever
you.
help you again, I would love to.
Thank you so much. Thank you.